All right, everybody, welcome back in. It's another week. It is another episode of the Rob and Stu Show. We're on to division weekend here in the NFL. Big show coming up. We got our boy Scott coming in. He's a real sports fan. He's from New York. If you didn't know, he'll be the first one to tell you. Best sports town in the world, some would say. He's coming up. He's going to be helping us out talking this Eagles-Giants game. We'll get to the rest of the picks later. Next week, stay tuned at the Pulse_SN on your YouTube, on your Twitter machine. We've got a lot of shows coming up next week. Bobcat's going to make a reappearance and a big racing show previewing Pegasus weekend. Still some guests to be determined, but I think it'll be a pretty solid cast of all-stars stopping by the show to get this thing off the ground. But let's start with somebody who's going to be staying on the ground, the Jalen Hurts-led Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, don't read my previous 2021 tweets about Jalen Hurts. But no, this is iconic that this is the matchup, right? I mean, this is two teams, two cities that are so similar, but we hate each other's guts, right? With sports. I mean, the rivalries. It's iconic, honestly. It's just an unbelievable matchup that we get this in the divisional round. You know, I started bullshitting with Scott a few years ago on Twitter, and we both root for the rival teams. I'm an Eagle fan. He's a Giant fan. I'm a Philly fan. He's a Met fan. But I think we get along because we're around the same age. We both grew up with, he's seen 2 Super Bowls, actually 3, but he's probably really seen 2. So he's got the advantage on me there, but he's a Met fan. You know, I'm a Philly fan. I mean, 2 tortured fan bases. I mean, but we crack jokes all the time. We like to talk shit to each other and fuck around and have a good time. And Scott, welcome to the Rob and Stu Show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. You know, when I was first on your podcast, we discussed the New York-Philly rivalry like you just discussed now, and this is just another chapter to it, right? I mean, it's a little sooner than later, but it's coming up. It's Saturday. Like, here we go. 2 heavyweights in the East going toe-to-toe, man.
It can't get here soon enough for us because, this season has went so perfect if you're an Eagle fan. Most of our seasons in the early 2000s went like this, where you were just waiting for the playoffs. Regular season is what it is. And then something horrific would happen in the playoffs. We would lose, usually in the championship game it would happen. But no, this year, like, it's felt like that early 2000 team, those 2000 teams where it's just like, well, everything has gone so perfect. Avoided, I've had some injuries, but avoided the major injuries. But, the last 3 or 4 weeks of this season, this team hasn't looked the same. And, everybody's talking themselves into, well, we really didn't play that hard in the last game. Okay, maybe they did, but they didn't play well versus the Giants backups. They struggled in that Bears game. So everybody in Philly is like, we're arrogant because they won 14 games and everything's been so perfect. And we're coming off just a couple of seasons from our first Super Bowl ever after 52 years of fucking pain and torture, rooting for this franchise. But this is a big spot. It's a big spot for the Eagles to me. Most Eagle fans, I don't think will say this, but all the pressure's on the Eagles in this game. This Giants team has nothing to lose. What do they care? That's what makes them dangerous. Like, they don't give a shit. They're rebuilding. What do they care? They're going to come out swinging. This is the only thing that has me fearful about this game. They have nothing to lose.
I'm going to agree with you there, but at the same time, I still have that little skepticism in my head that if Jones puts up a dud, are they going to throw all that money to him and he's the future? He earned it with the last 3 or 4 games of the season, and overall this year, his play has been unbelievable. But if he puts up a stinker, the Giant fans, majority of them, like, oh, here's Daniel Jones again. Are we going to give him that long-term contract and that big money? He's definitely earned it, but do they take some years off now and make it smaller if he puts up a complete stinker, which I don't think is going to happen. I think the Giants are coming in hot, that that first game against Minnesota catapulted them into the playoffs. Then they beat up Indianapolis to clinch the playoff. And then you saw it in the playoff game. They took Minnesota's heaviest punch, and they still went up and down the field on them and made the stops when they had to. And it's all because I believe it's the coaching, and everyone believes. And I was watching like the HBO behind the scenes of the NFL, and you see the sights and sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenny Galladay is even bought in with this team, and they threw so much money at him, and he had that touchdown catch in Philadelphia and made a big block last week. But even he's bought in, so I think this Giants team is all on the same page and all together, and they're going to come in there and listen. We're not supposed to be here. The Eagles are number one. They have all the pressure. They drafted Jalen Hurts after they won a Super Bowl 5 years ago. They're already on their third quarterback since then.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, there's a lot of pressure on the Eagles in this game. And you're right with Jones. One thing I think Daboll, when he got hired, one thing I liked about the hire is, he was at Alabama with Tua and Hurts. He knows how to develop quarterbacks. And I think you see what Jones is, not taking away anything Jones has done. They limit him during the games when he plays well. They don't say like Pat Shurmur did, or, even in Joe Judge's offense, they don't make him drop back 40 times a game. They're going to limit his, play action, run him off the play action, let him throw a little bit, but they don't get him hurt, I think, in that kind of, you know what I mean? In that kind of thing. Like, I think he knows how to protect him.
They know how to protect him. They know what plays to call for him, and they know his limits. And we saw him unleashed a little last week. I think this week, even more, you'll see him try to use his legs.
I think they're going to run him because, it's so funny. And both teams are like this. Okay, both teams are at a point right now where they're going to have to pay both of these guys, right? Because really, when you look at it, they're going to be so low in the draft now. There's no way you're getting such a high pick where you're going to take another quarterback, right? So you're stuck with these guys, good or bad, for the next couple of seasons. But the thing is like, Hurts is in a different situation because they went out, they got A.J. Brown, they got Devontae Smith. The time is now for Jalen Hurts. He's got to win this playoff 100%. Game now. In these big sports cities, like, with the Mets, with the Knicks and everything like that, when the team is really good, when the Giants won their Super Bowls with Manning, the pressure is on to win now. Somebody like Jones, I think he's going to get to pass that. The team really isn't that talented. Now, like you said, they've all bought in, which sometimes could even be more dangerous. You know what I mean? They've all bought in. They're all playing within the system. But I think Hurts is under a lot of pressure in this game. I'm interested to see the way he comes out and the way he plays in this game. But I was going to say about the contracts is, even the Giants, they haven't paid Jones the money yet. That's why I don't think they're afraid to run him. I was with a lot of Giant fans last week during the game. And they're like, well, don't run him that much. You're going to get him hurt. You're going to get him hurt. But I don't think they care. They know that's
use them.
Yeah, use it. I mean, it's the same thing I say with Hurts. Everybody was mad at Sirianni. Oh, you shouldn't have got him hurt in the Bears game. You shouldn't run him in the Bear game. That's what he fucking does best. That's why their offense is so successful, because he can run whenever he wants to, take off and get a first down. I mean, everybody's upset that they called a run play and he got hurt versus the Bears. That's what he's done all season. That's what makes these guys, these guys are mobile quarterbacks. They're going to get out and run. It's just, there's not the pocket passers anymore. The NFL has changed to me. I mean,
it's 100% changed.
Yeah.
So going back to what you were saying, this Giant team this year reminds me of last year's Eagles team that got a taste of the playoffs. They made it last year, right?
Yes.
And Hurts led them to the playoffs. They got a taste, and then they added the weapons, and now the pressure's on them. So next year, I have a feeling that the GM's going to maybe make a trade for a wide receiver, or they'll sign somebody and they'll get another player because, hey, New York went this far this year. Who knows how far they can go? They have Jones. They'll probably sign Barkley. Let's add a wide receiver and another position player, and maybe they'll draft a tight end or something. And all of a sudden, they might be the favorites. Who knows?
Oh, I think next year you're going to see them when he has money to spend. This guy wasn't even allowed to cook yet. I mean, he hasn't been even allowed to dig into his own roster, right? So next year, they're definitely going to be, each one of these teams in the NFC East that's left is really, Dallas and Philadelphia are right there near the top. And now the Giants are becoming to be right there with them. I mean, as long as you get the quarterback play, It's all you really need. You got the other talent now. Like you said, you got Barkley. Dexter Lawrence is turning into a Fletcher Cox. He's turning into a dominant force in the middle.
And then you have Andrew Thomas
on
the line.
Yes.
You have the stud lineman right there.
They're finally starting to build the line, which they didn't do for years. They went after.
That was their issue. Yep.
Yeah, the flashy players. Even when they were so good years ago in the early 2000s, to me, I was a little bit too young for 1990 and 86, obviously. But like their early 2000 teams, they had great lines. I mean, that NASCAR
they had decent
package.
Oh, yeah. That was unbelievable.
They dominated on the lines. And, that's one thing that Dallas and Philly, even though I get on the Eagles all the time, one thing Dallas and Philly have always done, that's why they've stayed a little more competitive over the past couple of years. They invest in their lines. That's one of the biggest things I think you can do in the NFL. But, Saturday, this is going to be wild, man. I mean, I tell you, like, the link is going to be out of control.
It's going to be a fucking, excuse my language. It's going to be a nut house.
Yeah, nut house. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, it's an insane asylum. It's going to be interesting though, because I'll tell you what, I mean, this crowd, I've had my season tickets now 10 years. I've been going since I'm a kid. The crowd can turn on the Eagles. I mean, if we have, we're coming off basically like a month layoff, right? I mean, they haven't played in a while. They go 2-0 on those first. They go 3-0 on those first two series.
You'll hear some booze early.
Yo, they heard Minshew heard it during the Saints game. We were all over his ass. I mean, that was disgusting.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the vibes is, but I'm sure there'll be some buses going down from New York. I mean, Giant fans have money. They'll try to sneak in there.
Oh, there's always Giant fans.
There's always going to be Giant fans.
Always,
in the upper deck
yeah. Giants in Dallas always. Even Washington. Washington always brings, not like not like the Giants or Dallas. I mean, I can remember the Giants when they were really good. They used to have a lot of fans. I mean, even the past couple seasons, a lot of Giants.
I remember the divisional game I went to in 2008, 2009, when McNabb picked up the phone.
Yes.
There was a ton of Eagle fans in the upper decks. That whole upper deck, I just remember that they came.
Well, you can hear them. They spell out the word Eagles.
Yeah, we heard them. But I was at that game, and I was at the 2000 divisional game, and there was some Eagle fans at that game. But that game, the giant crowd, the old waving towels, the old stadiums was just so loud. There were different atmospheres. It was insane. Everyone was there for the game, like they were really
that
into
old
it.
Meadowlands, really, it's funny. My neighbor growing up, he still has, I still talk to him every once in a while. He still has his Giant season tickets. We were like the Hatfields and McCoys living next to each other, but he used to take me to games, especially when the Eagles played there. He'd give the tickets to my dad sometimes. We would go to Giant Stadium when I was a kid. That old Meadowlands used to rock, man. That place, you feared going in to play in that place. I mean, Akers kicking in there. The Eagles had some nightmare games in there. I've had some good wins in there, but that old Meadowlands, you feared going in there to play. I mean, these new stadiums today, even the link can get wild. The link can get rowdy because Philly fans are, we're fucking wild. There's no doubt about it. But it's not the Vet, right? Like the Vet, even though we didn't win a championship there, I mean,
the fucking
that
Vet
place
was
as
insane.
a kid, man, that scarred you for life. I mean, that place is insane. You could feel that stadium rocking back and forth. But I think it goes to a greater point that I don't know what it is, but professional sports in the Northeast, like Stu, he's a big Midwest guy. He's a big college guy, and you are too. We all love our college sports, but something I always try to explain to Stu, I'm like, you just don't understand professional sports in the Northeast. Like, it's
pro sports in the Northeast.
I would tell you that you don't understand your professional football team not being in a championship game for 75 years.
Well, okay. Stu's a Lions guy. So
yeah, that's tough. I was looking up NFC Championship history. My friend's like, didn't the Redskins? I'm like, yeah, the Skins played the Lions that year. I remember because we were talking about Buffalo. If they make the Super Bowl, the only NFC East team they haven't played in the Super Bowl is the Eagles.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even think of that.
So then I'm like, well, what were the NFC Championship games? And my friend's like, how'd you remember that? I'm like, well, I remember the Lions played. They made it finally. They played the Redskins.
I don't even remember.
91. That was 91,
yeah,
92.
In 91, that's the last time I want to say that's the last playoff victory for the Lions. They beat the
I remember the
Cowboys.
Eagles played the Lions in a wild card game. I was watching it in a hotel with my grandparents. It was like 56-20 something, like
Lomas
95,
Brown
96.
guaranteed the
Lomas
victory for the Lions. Yeah, Rodney Pete. Then we went to Dallas the next week and got
and got your
absolutely
asses kicked.
throttled when they were on their way to their fifth Super Bowl.
Well, let's give out a play here. Where are we thinking? 7.5 Eagles laying it over under 48. Scott, you're our guest. We'll let you.
I think the
let you go
Giants are
first.
gonna. I think the Giants are gonna cover. I'm not. I also think they're gonna win outright. I'm gonna say what
Son of a bitch.
28-21. 28-21.
Oh, killing me. I tell you what,
That's what Scott said. He's going to reverse line it. He's reverse lining that.
Yeah, he's doing a Bobcat. Love it. In this game as a gambling guy, I like the over a lot because I think the Eagles are predicated on their, obviously watching them so as much as I do. They're predicated on that front four getting home, right? I mean, Slay and Bradbury are decent, but they can be beat too. I mean, I've seen them get torn up by Dallas. I've seen them get beat up. Running quarterbacks give them a little bit of an issue. I like the over in this game. I know Martindale's a very good defensive coordinator. I just think that Giants secondary lacks a little bit. Now, I understand they have Dory Jackson back, but I think they're going to see points in this game. I think it'll be a typical NFC East game. I think it's going to be tight in the first half, each team feeling each other out like a boxing match. And then I think in the second half, it's all hands on deck. You're going to have Jones running. You're going to have Hurts running. The Sharps in Vegas bought the number for 7. Okay, all the money went on New York at 7.
Early, too. Yeah.
Early. But, one thing I always learn when I watch VSiN, when a New York team, they always say this, is in the playoffs or a New York team is, playing well, big money comes from New York early in the week all the time. The guy said you can always guarantee it. A New York team will be bet early in the week. They always take big bets. So I want to see where it goes towards the end because it's funny. The short money is on the Eagles at 7. I'm sorry, the short money's on the Eagles at 7.5. But a lot of the big money bettors have New York at 7. So I think the number is going to fall right in there. So I'm going to hope for a 34-27 final. I won't lie to you guys. It's going to kill me if the Eagles lose this game. I mean, it's going to bother me. I ain't going to lie to you. This wouldn't be Tampa in 2002. I couldn't even go to school the next day. I wasn't so devastated. This would be top 5. For them to win 14 games and go out in the first round to division rival.
I agree there. I'm trying to remember those the Eagles team. They went into Chicago. I think McNabb was that his second year or first year.
That was his second year.
Second year, right? And Chicago had like a great season, but the Eagles upset them. So it kind of reminds me of a team like that. Even the Giants went the year Plexico Barris shot himself. They went like 12-1 start, and then they finished the year with
they
the
did
best
finish
record.
The year a lot like the Eagles. Yeah, they got beat.
Well,
remember
this
that
reminds
Sunday
me
night
of that
game
year
against,
a little bit.
That Sunday night game against Washington in the Meadowlands. They got beat. They didn't play well.
Yep.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are eerie about this matchup, right? I was looking at it the other day. When we beat you guys in 08 season, really 09 was the game. We were the 6th seed and we went into Minnesota and beat them. They had won
I saw that today.
Yeah, this is the 6th seed doing that, and there was something.
It's really eerie, dude.
Yes, there was some eerie stats given, and we've seen it this year in baseball. The Phillies were nowhere near the Mets or the Braves all season.
That's unbelievable.
They couldn't compete with them all season. Then all of a sudden, the last week of the season, they play the Nationals. They start playing better, but we're all like, all right, they made the playoffs. Fine. We break the 11-year drought. We're just happy. There we are, 1 game from the World Series. We're in game 6 at the World Series. Nobody in the world thought that. And the Giants kind of had that going where it's like, nobody thought it in a million years. If you would have told anybody in August the Phillies will be in the World Series, the whole city of Philadelphia would have had you committed.
Yeah, I honestly thought.
I was paying attention to a Phillies beat writer / fan, and he said the Phillies were quote unquote AIDS. Scott,
just follow me. Just follow my account.
Have you ever called
I
the
honestly,
Mets AIDS?
no, I know. I know people that use that term on Twitter and stuff, but I've never called them that. But going back to before the season started, I thought this Giant team, 6-10's an improvement, 7-10 and or whatever the 18-game season now. I'm like, yeah, Daniel Jones will probably have a good year. They'll probably sign him, but all of a sudden they start winning games. And now looking back early on, yes, they beat like the Bears and Houston, but Jacksonville, they toughed out that win on a goal line stand. And look where Jacksonville is now. I know we're going to talk about the other games. They're at the Chiefs. They're one win away
Yeah, but
from
even
an AFC title.
even
Tennessee was
Tennessee, they
tough.
beat. Tennessee was a number 1 seed last year. They beat Tennessee. I mean, that's why I laugh at these people on Twitter.
Baltimore was a playoff team. They beat them in October when Jackson was healthy still.
Yeah, and that's the thing I always laugh on Twitter. And I'm friendly with a lot of guys on Twitter that are New York fans because I think a lot of guys my age, no matter what city that you root for, like we're the kind of fans that'll get on our own teams. Some people are just fanboys and fangirls, right? Like we all like to rip each other's teams or make jokes, but like that's one thing I laughed at during the season. Like everybody's like, well, they shouldn't be 7-2. Oh, they shouldn't be 8-2. That's the one thing about sports where everybody's like, oh, they got lucky, or they shouldn't have won this game, or they shouldn't have won that game, or this and that. Well, they did. I mean, so it doesn't matter.
You win the
what
games that's on your schedule. You can't where you finish is what your schedule is. But teams, you know how teams play towards the end of the year. A lot of them are playing for their jobs, and some of them rolled over, and then you have the Raiders.
Listen, you see it in sports all the time. You saw with the Giants with their 2 Super Bowls. In the middle of that 2007 season, you couldn't have told any Giant fan that they were going to win the Super Bowl. Nobody would have thought that.
No, they had games in the middle of that year. And I'm going to go back even further, that 2000 season. I know Stewie's a Lions fan. Jim Fossil said he's going to put all his chips in the middle of the table after a home loss to the Detroit Lions that year, and another bad game against the Rams, I remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Even that Giants team, that the 2011 team. What was it? When they played the Jets, when they got the Victor Cruz touchdown for like 99 yards, they were down in that game.
That woke them up for the rest of the season, play, because that play, the Jets were giving them a tough game.
Yeah. Even the Eagles in 2017, their last 2 home games with Foles were the worst games I ever sat through in my life. Like me and my dad were walking out of the stadium. I'll never forget. My dad's like, this is done with. We're number 1 seed. That's it. They forget about it. They're never getting to the Super Bowl. I mean, he was terrible in those 2 games. He was terrible through halftime in the Atlanta game. But like in a million years, I never thought he beat Tom Brady. Like,
that game was insane, that Super Bowl. What do you think of the other games? I know Stewie wanted to touch on them.
Yeah, I wanted to get to it. Jags, Chiefs, by the way, throwing it out there. I agree with you, Rob. I like the over in the Eagles Giants game. Jags, Chiefs, 9 is the points that the Jaguars are getting. The Shad Khans, 52.5 is the total. Robert, lead us off.
I tell you, in this game here, I really like the Jags to cover. I think Kansas City's the better team. But Jacksonville last week, the only,
more news at 11.
Yeah, Jacksonville is coming off such an emotional win, but this isn't a bad Jags team. They have some talent, and the Chiefs don't cover big spreads. They never do.
They are awful with big spreads. Terrible. And weather's going to be a factor in this game. I was reading already.
Yeah, they have a knack for winning the games, but let's be honest. I mean, this is Andy Reid in the playoffs. I mean, you're talking to a guy who's watched Andy Reid's worst moments in the playoffs, his time management. I mean, the guy has drove us crazy for years. This is obviously the Chiefs are a talented team, but I think the Jags can stay with them. I think the Chiefs by a touchdown or a field goal, but I think Jacksonville covers the spread.
I agree with you. If I had to play this game, and I have to because it's happening, I'm going to take the Jags and just hope and pray. Scott, are you with us?
I'm on board with the Jags, but I'll say this: if Lawrence comes out and has a first half like last week, forget it. I know the Chiefs are sometimes this year they gave up a lot of points late, and some teams came back on them. But this is different. This is a playoff game. Mahomes knows how to win in the playoffs. So if Lawrence has a bad half again, it could be good night the lights. But I do think the Jags are going to play tough, and they'll cover in this one, though. They're coming in hot just as much as any other team.
Let's head to Sunday. My favorite play of the weekend in this game, Scott. Bengals, Bills, happening, of course. Where else would it happen? It's happening in Atlanta. Bills laying 5.5 over.
Actually, this game's at Orchard Park, I think.
Didn't they move this to?
No, Stu. Fucking wake up.
Sorry,
Al.
Stu. The championship game would be in Atlanta. The Chiefs. My bad, Stu.
These Michigan guys, Scott. These Michigan guys are asleep.
Whatever.
Well,
I still like my play.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be very emotional. These two teams coming together before the game with all that went on the last few weeks with Hamlin. And I think the Bills are going to come out hot, but the Bengals can take a punch. No one's talking about them. Everyone's like, oh, Mahomes again, or Trevor Lawrence is caught hot, or Josh Allen. The Bengals are the reigning AFC champs. They did it last year on the road. This is a tougher matchup, but something's going on up in Buffalo with Allen. He's slightly off. He'll have a miscue here and there that might. You saw last week that all of a sudden 17-0, and I'm like, all right. Well, they left the door open. The Dolphins came back a little bit, but Buffalo did pull away. So I think the Bengals are definitely going to cover, and I'm going to take them for an upset, like 27-24.
Scott, I'll tell you this much. I couldn't agree more. I love the Bengals this weekend. I love the Bengals. Besides having the Joe Burrow helmet right behind me, look, when I was watching that game, you're up 17-0 at home against Skylar Thompson and Samuel Hamed. And you let those guys score 31 points on you. Every time I was watching that game, every other play, it looked like, and I'm going to steal Mike Lombardi's line here, they were playing Battleship. G5. Let me just throw it 50 yards down the field and hope somebody catches it.
Yeah.
I think the play calling's asinine. I think this defense is a fraud. 31 points. Now, I'm not letting the Bengals off the hook because I thought, giving up 17 to the Ravens that's a tough look. That is a Service Academy offense. But
I think it was a divisional game, and that's the only reason why it was that close.
I get it, but the Ravens can only do one thing. They can only run, and they can't even do that very well. I think the Bengals win this game. I think 5.5. As Bobcat would say, if you don't got enough testosterone, take the 5.5. I think they easily cover it. I don't understand the line. Love the Bungles this weekend. Rob, you joining the Bungle train?
Now I'm on the Bills. I was against Cincinnati last week. I don't like the injuries that they've had on their offensive line, so I don't think their offensive line's playing that great. Now you're right about Buffalo. They were very sloppy in that game. The only thing I'm giving Buffalo a break for last week, I think a team like Miami coming in there. You had the emotional the week before, right? With Hamler, the whole thing, the Bills coming home. I think it was a little bit of a letdown last week. I know that sounds stupid because it was a playoff game, but, I think in their minds, they had already thought, okay, well, it's Skylar's playing. We're going to win this game easy. I think they got up 17-0 and they were a little lackadaisical. I think that's going to wake them up. I really like Buffalo in this spot to bounce back. The Bengals should have lost that game. If they score right there, Baltimore, they're going to win that game on the goal line. It killed me. I had Ravens money line. I just don't love the way this Cincinnati team is playing right now with the injuries. So I got to tell you, I really like the Bills in this game.
All right, let's wrap it up. Sunday afternoon, 6:30 Eastern, Niners versus Scott and Rob's second favorite professional football team, America's team, the Cowboys from Dallas, Texas. Getting 4. Who you got here, Rob? You love some Dak Prescott. Scott's been on the record. He thinks CeeDee Lamb's the greatest wide receiver ever made. Is it too soon to put him in Canton? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I got my Michael Irvin nightlight right next to me. This is such an interesting matchup, right? Dallas Jekyll and Hyde team. They can
They
either
really
be
are.
really dominant, really good. I mean, you saw it on display in Tampa Bay, but I thought Tampa Bay was cooked. I mean, I thought Brady looked cooked. I thought their team was cooked. I don't call many winners, right? But I did say Monday morning on Twitter, I'm like, this is too easy. How the hell do you bet Tampa? Brady took a lot of money, obviously, because he's Brady. But I mean, listen, Dallas in this game, I do think can move the football, because the only thing I think that's underrated about Dallas, they're overrated pretty much all the time. I think their offensive line is pretty good. They did a really good job against the Eagles in their front. It's one thing they impressed me when we played them. I said, damn, Tyler Smith, the rookie, was playing well. I don't know if they're going to have him back for this game, but their offensive line was playing. If you can hold that San Francisco D line just a little bit, you can beat them. Their secondary is not that good, San Francisco. You saw Stidham passing on them with the Raiders. I hate to say it. I like Dallas in this spot. I really do.
Scott.
I think Dallas gets it done this week too. I'm not rooting for it, but there's just something going on with like San Francisco, Brock Purdy. Like, it's too good of a story. The key matchup though is Trent Williams and Micah Parsons. If Parsons can get in there and cause a disruption, San Francisco is going to have a long day, because I think Prescott is ready for this moment. Like, he's made the playoffs a few times. He's been a 1 seed before, and they win that, they lose their first matchup on the road or whatever. Like, they get past this round, but I think they're ready for it. They have CeCe Lamb, like you said. They have some playmakers. They have a really good backup running back. Was it Tony Pollard, I think?
Yeah,
and
he's excellent.
he's actually like that. So I think Dallas is going to sneak in there and get a win. The only thing, and we saw what happened on Monday night, and it reminded me of a Giant game a few years ago. Jay Feely missed a lot of field goals in Seattle. It was so that they're trusting their kicker. And if it comes down to a big kick, you have to be worried a little bit.
Jay
If you're
Feely,
Dallas,
also a confirmed scumbag based on his choices in colleges. I'm going to disagree with both you guys here. I like the Niners. I've never been a fan of this Cowboys offense all season. And putting up points against the Bucs, not special. It's not anything electric. I don't think Dak's that good. I've never bought the Dak hype train. And while they can run the ball, that front seven for the Niners is serious. It's a serious front seven. They can get after it. I think the problem is for the Cowboys defensively, Parsons is a huge X factor. But when you have that 6-back offense and you have Samuel coming off the edge, you have McCaffrey, you have the 45 other running backs they have for the Niners interchanging with Brock Purdy's, he's got a solid running ability. I mean, at some point you're going to catch a weak part of that defense. I think the Niners win by a touchdown. So I hate to burst your guys' bubble. I know you're praying that the Cowboys get through and get a shot at the Super Bowl, where I think we all can agree they belong.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah. Scott, before we let you go, please, what is your Twitter handle? Where can people find you?
You can find me at Mets Fan Scott on Twitter, and usually talking sports, horses, and other memes and just fun stuff. But it should be a great weekend of football, gentlemen. Let's sprinkle in some college hoops too. I know there's some big games tonight.
Oh yeah, I got a game tonight. I am waiting. I have quite a bit on North Texas tonight, taking on the Owls of Rice. So hopefully nobody's going to hear that.
Stu bets 2 guys in a gym in Minnesota. Stu gives me lines that I don't even know who the hell's on the team.
There's nothing like mid-major college basketball. My friend got me hooked on it.
Oh, it's so good,
and it's fun betting it. I'm not gonna lie.
I'll tell you what. When you pull up ESPN Plus, and by the way, for anybody that has ESPN Plus that watches FCS football games or like the mid-major basketball games, and the crew is like 2 local people, it's the best sports announcing you will ever hear. I was watching Murray State play Chattanooga earlier this year. Murray State announced crew, right? And Chattanooga busts off a run to the outside. Chattanooga handoff, Bell to the outside. He had 5 yards to. Oh no, he's gone. Audibly. Oh no. Oh no.
That's fantastic.
Just the announcing is so good. It's so good. It's why I pay ESPN money.
So I know we got a sign off soon, but Rob, you want to do like a wager on the game?
Oh, that's a good.
Oh yeah,
That's good.
yeah. Got to do something. You got to come up with something.
Let's do like a $50 gift card to a food place, something something funny on.
All right,
like that.
perfect.
So
All right,
$50 giant. Just win straight up.
Yeah, win straight up. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
And if the Giants win, Rob, you have to buy me a Plaxico Burress Giants jersey. All right, perfect. Let's do that. Folks,
all right,
stay
we got
tuned.
a nice wager.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Next week, folks, we'll be back. Horses, Pegasus next week. Also, we'll be talking the conference finals and probably start working in some college basketball. Scott does bring up a good point, Rob. We need to start talking Stonehill, Queens.
Yeah. No.
Big games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting to be college basketball season.
Liberty.
And just good news for you, Michigan State up by 6 on
Oh, I have it
Rudiger's
over
at the
here.
half.
Oh, boy.
I have it over here.
You hate to see it.
Again, Rutgers' fabulous shooting is on display.
Yeah. Mulcahy from the corner. Anyway,
Oh,
folks.
God.
Hey, thanks for having me
watching.
on, gentlemen. Stu, it's a
Always,
pleasure.
Scott.
Rob, I'll
always.
chat
We'll
with
see
you.
Always.
again.
Always.
Folks, stay
Enjoy.
tuned at the Pulse Sports Network on YouTube, on your Twitter machine. Until next time, take care, brush your hair, and we'll see you after a while.